today, the UK is adjusting its online safety bill so platforms can't pull down content without a review. Quote, democracy depends on people's access to high quality journalism, said British Culture Secretary.
Then it was promoted as a slugfest, but in the end, Tucker Carlson giggled, made wild pronouncements, while Ben Smith was painted into a corner of being reasonable and factual. Maybe that was the way it was supposed to go.
And if you've ever wished for crazy low prices, then Wish was your app. Only it turns out it was kind of a scam. Ouch.
Who knew? I'm Laura Fitton, and this is Future Forward.
I am Steven Rosenbaum. Let us launch. Hey, everybody. We had the 4th of July weekend off, which I think was a good thing. Got everyone a chance to reset and read a little less news. And I have to say, I think this pod is going to be fantastic because all three of these stories are in their own way profoundly interesting and kind of unusual. Should we start with the UK?
Sounds good.
I'm puzzled by this story because I can't decide if it's good news or bad news or no news, and I don't really understand who would have lobbied in favor of essentially slowing the takedown of objectionable material.
I mean, I think that's what worries me is who did want this. It's meant to have a calming effect on this idea that, okay, the new law is going to hold platforms more responsible for what is up there, and they're going to be more likely to take things down. Oh, but wait, here is some extra red tape about what you have to do when you are taking it down.
Right. And when they say appeal, they don't mean like a 2-hour window. They mean a bunch of lawyers, and the lawyers have a meeting, and then there's a presentation, and then there's a ruling. So it's weeks.
I mean, it certainly sounds like the News Media Association wanted it, right? Which represents 900 titles in national, regional, and local news industry. I don't know. This one's a tough call. It does have a carve out for things that are, kind of more obviously illegal in terms of what content could be pulled down without this process.
But just to be clear, the nature of news is perishable, right? So
Yep.
if your supermarket said it's going to review the potential danger of peppers and onions on their vegetable counter for a month, and then decide if they've spoiled, by the time you get around to saying no, the peppers and onions are okay, they're not okay anymore. So essentially this guts the bill.
Right. Right. Because you can't really take stuff down. It will have already done its damage. So I'm not familiar with the talk radio YouTube incident they mention in here. Are you?
No, in fact, not a bit. Haven't heard of it and wasn't aware of it and didn't research it before the pod. But I guess the headline for our US-based listeners and viewers is, if we thought that the Europeans were going to come in and save our bacon by making good, strong internet safety laws, which we would then be forced to comply with, GDPR, etc., not so fast. These problems remain our problems, and
they're getting their own bill here, possibly.
Yeah, and they seem happy. Yeah, again, and it's funny. I read this, I didn't understand it, and I thought, okay, Guardian gets a B because I don't understand whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'll go read some other writing about it to find out, and couldn't really find any other writing about it.
It's too inside baseball, so it's not getting widely covered.
I'm not saying, not covered. I mean, surprisingly, and it was hard to read and hard to Google. But for our internet safety fan club in our audience, of which there are certainly hundreds of people and maybe thousands. A, we love your input on this, and B, I think again that the headline is whatever we're going to do in the US, I don't think we can just assume that the UK is going to solve it and we can follow along.
Well, I mean, one caveat in the last quote in the article is that this only addresses recognized news publishers. So it's, you have to have some skin in the game. You have to be kind of an established actual news publisher. How they define that where it comes to extremist and hate outlets, I don't know. And I would really love to know more about that.
Presumably Fox News would be a recognized news outlet.
Fox would be recognized, right? But would here in the US, like Daily Caller be, oh, this is a recognized news outlet. You can't take down their stuff no matter how outrageous, unless it crosses that line into, I think the carve-outs were for terrorism, sanctions, and child porn.
I think we should change the name of the podcast to Future Forward News. And just say we expect to be treated as a yeah. I mean, again, if you go to get your hair cut, your barber or beautician has a license. There is no such thing in the world of journalism. So recognized news outlet is a really slippery slope. I mean, certainly Breitbart, or Drudge would consider it, themselves a recognized news outlet. And, a topic for another pod about some industry set of standards around what news is and what news isn't would, I think, be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, I think the UK ban blocking news providers for taking down content, for platforms taking down content before an appeal. I'm going to put in the bad news category all around. I think it's one of those rare loses in which, anyway.
So tell me more about this interview with Ben and Tucker. I watched a couple of the clips, but I have not seen the whole thing.
It wasn't very long. So this was sponsored by the Knight Foundation. It was Semaphore's Virgin journey. There were 2 panels, and then the Tucker Ben interview was last. The panels were fine, interesting, thoughtful, not particularly revelatory. Everyone tuned in to see Ben and Tucker go at it. And the reviews were decidedly mixed. Ben is a friend. I like his work very much. I think he's a terrific journalist. I liked him at the Times. I liked him before the Times. I'm excited to see what he does at Semaphore. I'm not sure, in hindsight, what he could have done to not be essentially, the victim here. Should I show a clip?
Sure.
All right, let's look at this Tucker for President clip. I think I figured out how to do this. Share screen, tab, share audio, Tucker for President. All right, this should work. Ready? Here we go.
Friends of yours, to the extent you still got them in Washington, we're talking about you're running for president in 2024, and I'm curious what your thought process is around that.
I have zero ambition, not just politically, but in life. My ambition is to write my script, by 8 p.m. And I'm not just saying that. Ask anyone who works with me or knows me. I don't think that way. I don't want power. I've never wanted power. I'm annoyed by things. I want them to change, but I've never been motivated by a desire to control people. I despise the libertarians, but my instincts are almost all libertarian in that way, and that's true.
So that's you're not running?
I'm not running. I
don't want to belabor that one.
And I enjoy my job, by the way. And what a blessing it is to say what you really think.
Let's unpack that, shall we?
This is a very disingenuous person.
Ellen Hansel was able to win any competition.
So if there was a button on your desk that with the word bullshit written on it, and you tapped it in that 1.5-minute long clip, every time he said something you thought was bullshit, you would have worn the button out.
He is not a reliable narrator.
I have no ambition, says maybe the most ambitious person on the planet. I hate the libertarians, even though I agree with all of their politics. He then later in the interview says he hates all the Republicans. Presumably unsaid is he hates all the Democrats, which means essentially he hates everybody. I mean, that's a pretty big swatch of hate you just kind of sprayed the room with. It was the most denial ever. And anyone who would be thinking about him as a presidential candidate got that message loud and clear. And then the other thing, and then we'll play one more clip, is the closet, the clothes closet. So we're doing our weekly podcast. I'm sitting in my living room. You're in one of your many palatial homes as you gallivant about. I'm kidding. I'm just joking. But neither of us are in a clothes closet.
Right.
Presumably you have a clothes closet and I have a clothes closet. For me to set up my camera and my computer and my microphone such that it was in the doorway of that clothes closet would actually be really hard to do. And by the way, the audio on Tucker's good. So it's not like, and he's also, enormously wealthy. I don't want to just throw out billionaire because I don't know his personal net worth, but I know he has a great big palatial house in Long Island, and he also has this somewhat more modest house in New Hampshire. But the decision to be in a clothes closet is a cartoon fiction. And his combination of kind of denial and oh shucks and everyone who knows me says, and then just laughing, that whatever that Joker Batman giggle that he has, I think left Ben with very little room to move. This may go down in history as the quintessential definition of bringing a knife to a gunfight. I mean, Carlson's going to make shit up and giggle and shrug his shoulders and make that weird giggly face. And Ben's going to try and interact with him and ask questions. And, it's not going to work. So there's one more clip that I think is relevant.
Well, not going to work for who, right? Like for which audience is it not working? Like, yes, for journalists, insiders who are like, oh yeah, it was a rough interview. I don't know. I think the ordinary person, well, no, I won't say the ordinary person can see Tucker for who he is, because the ordinary person is his viewer. I don't know. I mean, he like you said, he had the right questions. He rolled tape and pointed out that Tucker had called out replacement theory 400 times. He didn't just randomly go like, oh, you say racist shit. He rolled tape, and, you're dealing with kind of a sociopath here, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I can't diagnose Tucker Carlson, but when someone's giggling and being disrespectful by setting up in a closet and outright lying about almost everything they're saying, like, what can you do? That's who they are.
I knew the question I would have asked, which I'll tell you in a minute, but let's look at this Divide the Country clip, because I think it's slightly sharper penciled. Here we go.
I think a lot of us are so earnestly concerned. I think the word you used was balkanization, but the notion that these divisions of the country are getting kind of deeper and more dangerous. I watch your show, and I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but that your audience enjoys it when you kind of pour gasoline on those fires, not when you try to put them out. And I wonder, the nature of cable news ratings.
It's so funny.
But hold on. I wonder if the nature of cable, of the sort of ratings-driven business of cable news in general, of yours in particular, I mean this seriously, basically makes it impossible to do anything else.
I love this. I've been in TV for 27 years. I don't know how to read a ratings chart. Ask anyone who works for me or has worked with me. I never look at the ratings. I'm not in the ratings email. I'm not even on email.
But you're in the ratings business, fundamentally.
I don't know what my ratings are. And I mean that. You may not believe me. I don't own a TV. That's true. So I'm actually never thinking about.
You know what your audience likes.
Can I just finish my answer? I'm not. I love it's to point out what the people in charge who have all the power, whose water you carry, are doing wrong. That's pouring gasoline on the fire. It used to be called holding the powerful accountable. But for example, the Biden administration is draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is one of the most valuable assets the United States owns, and selling some of it to China. Now, is it pouring gasoline on the fire to point that out? No, it's called journalism.
Do you think there's anything you do or can do to? Obviously, every journalist's job, tell the truth, deliver the facts. Is there anything that you ought to be doing to sort of diminish this, what you call balkanization?
Yes, there is, and I'll tell you exactly what it is.
And not just us. I know you have a lot of views on what we ought to be doing. Because I'm most curious how you think about yourself.
I'll tell you, and that's de-racialize things. Okay, the scariest thing that could happen to America is to wind up in a country that cleaves along racial lines. Because that's just Rwanda. Like that's a cul-de-sac. We know where that ends. And identity politics is the root there.
And I think people left and right who see you, but your friends and your enemies who see you doing that.
Please, let me just answer your smart question because I think it's an important one. So the most important thing we can do, and we should do, people have an audience, is to de-racialize the conversation. The Democratic Party is like, it's white people, white men versus everybody else. I hate that. That's not true. And if you look at the numbers, and I've been highlighting this, not because I want to help the Republican Party, which I despise. I hope that's clear. I don't ever want to defend the Republican Party, which does not represent me. What I want to do is point out that the divisions are not fundamentally racial. Look at Biden's approval numbers among self-described Hispanics. I think it's 24%. Now, you could say that's good news for the Republicans. Again, I really don't care, and I mean it. It's good news for America. That what's not happening is white people over 50 versus everybody else. You don't want that. That is an unsolvable divide. What you're seeing now is people lining up on the basis of their actual interest, not racial interest, actual interest, mostly economic interest, against the people who are hurting them, which is the people
so many dog
really
whistles.
Yeah.
So many dog economic interest. Oh.
Again, back to the button that we're going to.
One simple but brilliant trick.
Sorry. Back to the button that we push, the bullshit button. Let's just roll. I mean, it's a very high level of word salad. It's not Sarah Palin word salad. It's word salad 3.0. He doesn't care about ratings. Bullshit, nonsense. His bosses do. He doesn't have an email. Complete, utter bullshit. My head explodes. So untrue. He doesn't own a TV. Also utter bullshit, garbage, nonsense. He has a family and children. Maybe they're all on their computers watching TV, but just utter bullshit, lies. He hates the Republicans and the Libertarians, which means he hates everyone. But when he says to Ben, that's a good question, that's a smart question, let me answer it, and then goes into the Rwanda thing. There is nobody single-handedly amplifying racial accusations and hate than he is. I mean,
straight to Rwanda. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing us that he doesn't exist, right? This clown act covers up someone who is a prime mover of pretty great evil in the world right now and knows he is. And when confronted with that fact, when the mass murderers were brought up, when the mass shootings were brought up to him, he just, freaks out in his way, which is to just attack and lie and look calm and happy while doing it. Like, it's very twisted.
No, the theater is impressive. And, I don't know what kind of rules were set up before this conversation. But the thing I would have asked if I'd been in, first of all, I mean, Ben had his papers, and he kind of interrupted him. It didn't have the flow of a sword fight. It felt more like a brawl. It didn't have a. So the question I would have asked is, one more pet peeve. So moments earlier, he said, "I'm a talk show host," and he giggled. Ben kind of set the frame as, well, journalists are focused on the truth and accuracy, essentially calling Tucker a journalist, which nobody has ever claimed he is. And then they went back and forth about journalism and the responsibility of journalism, essentially giving him permission to cloak himself in some weird sideways way as a journalist, which I just made my head explode yet again. But the question that I would have asked, and I would have asked it in a tighter, I would have said, Tucker, you're on the opinion side of Fox News. We understand that. You're saying you don't like the Democrats, you don't like the Republicans, you don't like the Libertarians. Sean Hannity, your colleague, was on the phone and on text with the White House on January 6th, giving them political advice about how to manage their engagement with this unfolding insurrection. A, why didn't you do that? And B, do you think your colleague made a mistake?
Do we know he didn't?
No, it's not on record. The Hannity stuff was all, the Kevin McCarthy texts were all released. But I don't think he's got that level of political. I mean, now, does he want to take on Hannity? Clearly not. I mean, he's already, kind of eclipsing Hannity's power just by being Tucker. But it would have been fun to watch him squiggle his way out of not endorsing Hannity's actions, not criticizing them. I mean, he would have said something. He would have had, my fantasy is he would have said,
very good. Very good.
My fantasy is he would have said, I know Sean and I are colleagues. We don't hang out together. We don't drink beer together. He does his show. I do mine. I don't micromanage what he does, and I don't expect him to do. I think it would have been a soft denial. But that might have been a little bit of oil on the fire of, even among Fox, there's some disagreement that Hannity went too far.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to get under the skin of guys like this, because this is their modus operandi, this joking around with each other and pretending, feigned indifference and all that. But it would be interesting to see who could. I'd love to see him freak out and fall apart.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of freak out going on.
No.
All right.
No.
Yeah, let's go to our last story. Let's talk about Wish. So before the pod, you said that you knew what Wish was because you'd been lured by the fake dress, which is not a story I know. So
no, I had never been lured by Wish, but there is a whole thing online years ago. God, I can't remember if it was Amazon or what platform I ordered it off of. I had just started working at HubSpot, and I was going to a 80s prom themed tech networking event. And I thought it'd be really funny to get like a bright orange HubSpot, prom gown. And so I looked around online, found a place I could order it from. I was like, oh, I don't know. It's from China. It might take a while. I was not sure the quality, whatever. What showed up was a cartoon of a dress, right? Like the image of what I ordered, looked like a normal dress. What showed up had stuff glued on and was 12 sizes too big and was not at all wearable in terms of it just looked like, I don't know. It looked terrible. I think I still have it in my kids' dress up thing. And that's where I learned there was the scam of they take real photos from real fashion designers and then send out these bizarro knockoffs. Now, I don't know that Wish specifically does that. I just know that in my, online, wherever I am, I get relentless, buy this gorgeous dress from Wish for $12. And I just laugh and go, no, that's not real. Shine is similar, SHEIN. And a couple times, you're like, oh, that looks cool. Maybe I'll find out what that is. It wasn't always dresses. And so before getting engaged with the site, I just, Googled, is Wish a scam? And there's lots of people who've had terrible experiences. So I don't know. I wasn't that surprised.
So I liked the app. I thought it was fun. It had some really cool gadgets. I bought a bunch of stuff. Some of it came and it was crappy. Some of it came and it was okay. It was always cheap enough that I never felt taken. But the thing about this Times article, and it's worth a read, we'll put the link in the show notes, is I find X times a week, and I don't know what the number is, I have to think about it, but certainly more than 0 and less than 20. I interact with something online in which I'm either overcharged or it didn't arrive or it arrives late or whatever. And I always assumed that individually those instances were all innocent. And reading the Wish story was the first time that I went, wait, they knowingly set up a store in which they offered products that were impossibly priced, took people's money, delivered nothing, and it was to experiment with what percentage of people would complain and ask for their $3 back or their $5 back. And it was not, it certainly wasn't 100% asked for their money back when the thing they ordered didn't come, and they checked the order and they'd ordered their 27-inch TV for $3. And then not only did it not arrive, but they lost the $3 because they swiped their credit card. And the fact that the Wish management team was experimenting with what the threshold of loss was before people would ask for their money back was, to me, like put a pit in my stomach in a way that I almost can't explain.
I mean, it is really twisted behavior. It is absolutely really twisted behavior. I don't know. I wasn't that surprised.
But think about, I was trying to think of an example of like what you and I might do that would shift our various business models in our life. So like, I have two books that are still in print. If I, put an ad on my website that said, if you want one of my 2 books, I'll send them to you for $1. Just swipe your credit card and I'll cover the shipping. And I got 1,000 people to say sure for $1, and then I delivered 0 of them and kept the $1,000. Like that would make me a criminal, not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But of those 1,000 people that gave me $1 for a book that I didn't send to them, when the book didn't arrive, because we're genuinely honest people, 500-600 of them will go, well, maybe it came and got lost. Maybe the postal service lost it. Maybe Steve didn't get the email. Maybe my credit card didn't work.
Or they just forget. I mean, there are a lot of people, it's definitely never happened to me. Yes, it's happened to me, who, a package goes up and they're like, oh, wait, what did I order? Yep. Which is bizarro considering how fast it comes, especially off Amazon. Yeah. But yeah, Amazon is a problematic company, and sometimes I'm concerned how much of my personal spend goes to them. I try and at least put it on, the climate friendly stuff that they sell and whatever. But the fact is, I am a single mom. I've always been extremely busy. I have a visceral aversion to retail environments, and I hate running errands. And so it's what makes my life work. Yep. And it's so reliable that to start with, I very rarely buy anywhere that's not that, just because I know it's going to be a hassle if there's a return or there's a this or that. So it takes a lot, right? It has to be like a really high quality, or like buying directly from a small business, buying directly from an environmentally oriented business, to get me to let go of that safety of that space I know that has like literally kept my, kept diapers coming in when my kids were babies, and like I had no time whatsoever. So for me to go experiment on a place like Wish would just be like, oh, hell no, that looks so sketch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know, people they get excited. It's too good to be true. And then, yeah, I think some of it is probably shame that they were conned. Right? Why aren't people calling up over their $3 thing? Because they knew when they swiped the card, they knew it was bullshit.
Yeah.
They were just hoping.
read the Wish article. It's in the Sunday Times Magazine. It's also, we'll put the link. I think it's part of a larger conversation about where the line is, when you're testing pricing or delivery, where the line is ethically between, testing different models and stealing. And my guess is that having read this, we're going to find there are many more companies or startups that are doing versions of this. And that, I think, has me losing sleep.
Ethical line, it's a pretty straightforward legal line, as you said. It is stealing.
Right, except the problem is it's not a crime. Anyway, I mean, no one's going to jail, which would have to be what happens. All right, we're out of time. Have an excellent week. Stay cool. See you next week.
Take care. Bye.